outsource that censorship to big tech giants, which is exactly what happened here. And I'm troubled by the fact that you were center stage in this. Your comments that we talked about aside, the State Department was actively working with big tech giants to shut down American speech. And so, you know, your testimony here doesn't give me any greater comfort as you're seeking a promotion. It's with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Schmidt. Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our nominees, thank you, and thank your families for service. Kids are doing well there, Mr. Schlott, so it's a long hearing. I appreciated our meeting the other day. Let me ask you directly the question that I asked. What's the #1 goal for the Department of Defense?
Senator, thank you very much, and I very much appreciate the meeting the other day and the conversation we had on a whole range of issues. The #1 goal of the Department of Defense is to make sure that we have a force that is lethal, that is precise, and that establishes robust deterrence. And we want our adversaries
and to win wars if our troops are called to win wars. Right?
Absolutely, Senator.
So here's a big issue, and you just saw the frustration from Senator Schmidt, and I'm going to talk about it. I think our civilian leadership at the Pentagon, a lot of them, particularly your predecessor, pushed an agenda that had a lot, that in many ways had nothing to do with that. You and I talked about this yesterday, and look, it was a very legitimate line of questioning. Sadly, because 3 years ago, your predecessor was here in this confirmation hearing, the Undersecretary for Policy, who, in my view, was a political hack. And one of his opening statements said his goal was to, quote, stamp out systemic racism within the ranks of the military. I said, wow, that's a pretty damning question to the ranks of the military. You ever served in the military, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Professor? No, Senator. Do you have any data backing that up, that we have systemic racism within the ranks of the military? No, Senator. So let's just be, I want to get this directly. Do you think that the U.S. military, one of the most admirable civil rights organizations in U.S. history, has systemic racism within the ranks, and do we need to stamp that out, as your predecessor said in his confirmation hearing? Do you agree with him?
Senator, as we discussed yesterday in your office, I don't believe that.
Okay, that was an insult to our troops, and the guy went on to be the #3 guy in the Pentagon. Do you want to apologize, perhaps, for that, even though you didn't say it? You understand why that's just insulting to the men and women who serve in the military? You understand? You understand why Senator Schmidt gets upset about this? I get upset about it. I was really mad at the previous Undersecretary.
Senator, I fully understand.
You think, would you want to apologize on his behalf?
Senator, it wasn't my statement to make. I can just tell you my views.
Okay. Well, look, it's good that if you're confirmed that we have an Undersecretary actually respects the troops, doesn't disparage them, without any data. Call was supposed to come back to me with his data. He never did, never had it. Let me ask another agenda that's being pushed. Do you believe the Secretary of the Navy got his climate change action plan to this committee 18 months ago, got his warfighting shipbuilding plan the night of his posture hearing 2 months ago? What's more important, warfighting and shipbuilding for the U.S. Navy or their climate action plan?
Senator, I would say...
Just answer it directly. It's an easy question. You should just give me the right answer.
I would say they're both important, but what's the most important is getting you responses in a timely fashion.
Well, no, I'm talking about building ships and warfighting or some, nebulous climate plan for the U.S. Navy. What's more important for the U.S. Navy? Come on, this is not a hard question. Just
we need to have.
I know your minders are watching and everything, but this is what we need you to do: is be strong. When you get the woke part of the military trying to shove all this stuff down the throats of the Pentagon, it's warfighting and shipbuilding for the Secretary of the Navy, isn't it? Isn't that more of a priority than climate change?
Warfighting is absolutely critical, and having a capable Navy is absolutely critical. If confirmed, I will do whatever I can to ensure.
And more important than climate change?
I think climate change is absolutely critical as well. The National Defense Strategy.
They're equally important? Come on.
They are
this
both.
Is not hard, right? And this is why I worry about Biden administration officials who are civilian nominees coming in. This is an easy question. Of course it's war fighting and shipbuilding. Just answer it.
Senator, again, as I said to you in your office, I think we need to be getting you these responses in a timely fashion. That's the bottom line for me, whether it's about climate change or the Navy or the Air Force or anything else.
So this exchange is very disappointing because part of the biggest concern that so many of us have is the civilians at the Pentagon are shoving down a system of values that don't relate to war fighting, don't relate to lethality. Let me give you another question. This president has put forward a budget 3 years in a row that shrinks the Army, shrinks the Navy, shrinks the Marine Corps, shrinks the budget each year. The president's put forward inflation-adjusted cuts. And next year, the Biden budget will take us below 3% of GDP for military spending. I looked it up. That'll only be the fourth time in 70 years. And yet everybody comes before this committee and says it's the most dangerous period since World War II. And the president continually puts forward budgets to cut defense spending. We'll be below 3% next year. I think the fifth time in 70 years. What's your sense on where the budget should be? Do you agree with the President of the United States that we should be cutting the budget? That's where he has put forward his budget. And the current budget shrinks the Army, shrinks the Navy, shrinks the Marine Corps. Is that the signal we want to send to Xi Jinping and Putin?
Senator, I believe we need to have a robust defense budget. If confirmed, I'm going to work to see the Defense Department get as much resources as it can. I, of course, support the administration's budget submission to you, but if confirmed, would look forward to working with Congress to see whatever we can do to get the warfighter what they need.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple additional questions, if I may, if there's no one else here. Second round. This is a really important position, and
I would ask, Senator, to just direct your questions and do so as succinctly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, I brought to the Senate floor my bill to pay our military. If there's a government shutdown, this bill would say, hey, even if there's a government shutdown, we're going to pay the men and women of the U.S. military because they're not going to get a day off even if there's a government shutdown. Do you support that bill?
Senator,
to pay our troops if there's a government shutdown?
I don't know the specifics of that bill, but absolutely we need to ensure that our national security needs are going to be taken care of, and hopefully we can do that by avoiding a shutdown.
Yeah, I agree. I hope we avoid a shutdown too. On Ukraine, you and I talked about this. I've been a supporter of Ukraine. You said if aid was cut off, it would be devastating. I've been supporting Ukraine aid. However, there's been a pattern within this administration, and a lot of it was the blame was pinned on your predecessor, is that almost every weapon systems, it's a long list, HIMARS, Stingers, Javelins, Patriots, F-16s, tanks. The administration has said, we're not sure we're going to do that. There's this self-deterrence. You know, Undersecretary Call would say, well, that might make Putin mad. And then we, this committee in particular, Democrats and Republicans, pressure, and you finally relent. Now that is really hurting the war effort, and it frustrates people. I think it undermines certain members' support for Ukraine. If confirmed, can you commit to actually accelerate the ability to get the Ukrainians weapon systems and not delay it for 9, 10, 11 months, get pressure from the Congress, and then finally do it?
Senator, thanks for the question. As we discussed in your office, if confirmed, I will move heaven and earth to get the Ukrainians what they need when they need it. We need to think about what they can operate, what they can maintain, and what would be most effective in the fight. We need Ukraine to win, so I would see it as one of my top priorities to ensure that we're getting Ukraine what it needs.
Let me ask just a few more quick questions, and maybe we'll just get commitments for you on the record. I care a lot about the Arctic. America has strong strategic interests in the Arctic. You may have seen in August, Chinese and Russians sent a joint naval patrol of 11 warships off the coast of my state. Alaska. We're an Arctic nation because of Alaska. The Pentagon, in my view, has been the last agency in D.C. to understand the strategic interests of the Arctic. This committee has pressed the Pentagon for almost a decade to focus on it more. Can you give me your views on the strategic imperative and interest we have as an Arctic nation in the Arctic?
Absolutely, Senator, and thank you for focusing so much on this issue. It's an issue that I've worked on quite a bit in the last year at the Pentagon, or sorry, at the State Department, and if I confirmed to go to the Pentagon, I would carry that forward. My understanding is the Defense Department is working on a new Arctic strategy, which is going to nest under the National Strategy for the Arctic that was released last year. Arctic is critically important to us, and we've seen Russia, but then, of course, the PRC is doing more and more in the Arctic, and I would urge my colleagues at the Defense Department, if confirmed, that we're going to do more on that.
If confirmed, can you give us more information?
Senator Sullivan, your second round time has
Okay,
expired.
my last question, and this is just a quick question, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your
Indulgence.
indulgence. That's the term I was looking for.
Yes, I know.
The Chinese spy balloon incident, as you know, a lot of that took place over Alaska. We've gotten essentially zero information on the aftermath of that. Maybe a lot of it's classified. Can you confirm to brief this committee soon? What are the results of that? What happened? What was it when we shot it down over Alaska? Two of those aircraft shot it down over the Carolina coast. Can you confirm to give us a detailed briefing on all of that? The Pentagon has kind of gone silent, and these are really important issues.
Senator, thanks for raising the question. If confirmed, I will absolutely dig into that and get you the information you need.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
Thank you very much, Senator Sullivan, for your questions. And Mr. Chalet and Ms. Abercrombie, thank you for your testimony. I have two administrative issues. One is I would like to submit for the record a letter signed by 35 senior national security professionals from the past 4 Republican administrations on behalf of Mr. Chalet, including among them is James A. Baker, who is one of the most outstanding civil servants we've ever had in this country. Without objection, so ordered. Now, when I asked you, Mr. Chalet and Ms. Abercrombie, the standard nominee questions at the beginning of this hearing, I inadvertently included a question asked only of military nominees. That question was, quote, do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration? This question and your answer do not apply to your positions, and I ask that the record reflect this fact. And without objection, the record will reflect this fact. Thank you very much. You both demonstrated your capability. I look forward to seeing your confirmation and getting you to lead the Department of Defense. With that, I would recess the hearing and adjourn.